So I just want to give you a quick tour of a table I made recently. This is a cherry table. It's about 68 or so inches long and 36 inches high, about 18 inches wide. And essentially I came up with this idea of taking a section out of the center and dropping it down and putting some details on there, some carving details. I hadn't done that before. So I added that in, did that by hand before the whole thing was cut out. And I'll talk about some lessons learned on that in a minute. And then the bottom shelf is essentially a larger section that the top shelf is, just a larger section to fill that in, give you some space down there. And then the aprons are this kind of a centerpiece. This is a sort of a large chunk of wood, and then these radiate out from it. You can see it a little bit better from that angle right there, how they go out to the legs. So this table has no apron on it. Essentially, there's no, there's no standard kind of apron, which kind of makes it a challenge because all parts of the table can be seen, including the bottom, and there's kind of no way to hide anything underneath it. That wasn't my intent, but that's kind of how it turns out. So I'll put some pictures in here as I'm talking to give you some close-up details. But what I learned when I cut the top out, I used my Shaper Origin, and I made one pass around the whole outside and this section right here so that I knew where it fell on the table, and then I did the carving. And what I would have done is, what I should have done is do the carving just after that first pass so there'd be more material in here to support it. And what happened was, as I got to some of the cross grain, the cut was down pretty far and some of these chipped out. So no big deal, lesson learned. What I ended up doing was I sanded it with a flap sander to get this nice and smooth, so it has kind of a worn look to it, which is what I was looking for in the first place. The other thing is, with the Shaper, I made this by defining an oval and then taking a circle and making an intersection. And what happens is the cut for this is an outside cut, and the cut for this is an outside cut here too. The problem is this is actually it's the same line. So if you cut them both, you'll end up with a double bit thickness here. So what I did was I cut this piece and came all the way around here like this, and then I switched to this piece and just made this cut. So this piece right here this edge was taken care of when I cut this part away. That's a minor detail, but just something you learn when you do it. The legs are, I don't know, about 2 inches square, something like that, 2 1/4. And they're square on this face right here, and then they're tapered on these three sides, and then they have a 3/8 inch round over bit so that they end with a semicircle down here at the bottom. And so they're kind of square and rounded up here. I wanted to try that. These sections in the middle taper slightly from a little bit wider here into this section right here, and these are held in with Festool dominoes. That was actually pretty easy to put together, and of course I did that while everything was square and I could measure and mark and do everything. So that went together very well, and no issues with that. And then the top is held on with figure eights on the top of the legs, and the shelves are held on with figure eights on the top of these kind of stretcher pieces. So it's finished with tung oil, and then a couple of coats of tung oil, and then I did wipe-on poly on the top to give it a little protection and a little bit more sheen.